Welcome back to Operation End Times. I'm your Jedi Warrior for Jesus, Bent Hellestead. I'm continuing my Building the Ark series with part 10. 10 represents a house. I'm going to call it The Daughters of Men. I tell you what, this is just like the Synchronicity series seems like it wouldn't end. This Building the Ark series seems like it ain't going to end either. But, I think there'll be a part 11. It seems like we're not talking about how to build the ark or when the ark's coming or anything of that nature. We're talking about who gets in the ark. But, the planks of the ark are planks of truth. And, the truth is built precept upon precept. And that's why we're having to look at all these things to just try and get a fuller picture of what the heck is going on. So, I'm going to just try and re-summarize a couple of things and bring out some new stuff, as always, new revelations. But what we can see is that there's this water. The water's from above, the water's from below. Water's above, light, God, heaven, male. The water's below, the abyss, earth, the Leviathan, female. The mystery of the female, the blessing of the breasts and the womb. What we got is Noah's Ark and a bunch of beasts and cattle getting on board. I'm telling you, it was people, not animals. We've pretty much proven that because the symbolism in the Bible constantly uses animals to describe people. There are verses that says man is a beast. But just to kind of close the door on that whole argument, in my last video I said if you look at the women in the Bible, you start gleaning information you wouldn't otherwise normally find. So one of King David's wives, Eglah, Hebrew word 5698, it translates to heifer. Her name was heifer, cow. There's another woman in the book of Judges, chapters 4 and 5. There's this battle that's going on. The king of Canaan, Cain, the curse of Canaan. But the king of Canaan at that point in time in Judges, I think is Satan himself or an underling. But it's basically, you can see the revelations in it. But it's like Satan comes down from heaven, the heavens bow. But a woman by the name of Deborah steps forward, and her husband Barak. Barak means blessed or lightning. But Deborah means bee. She was a queen bee, and she talks about being the mother of the house of Israel. But ultimately her and Barak end up getting swept away by a flood, by a river. But there's a woman, Jael, that comes out, and she ends up being blessed above all women. But her name literally means wild mountain goat. Now, Satan is sometimes depicted as a goat himself. So, this woman, I'm going to view her as positive, but she could be like a daughter of Satan in a way. But she ends up slaying Sisera, which is the king of Canaan's son, another dark figure. But she tells him to fear not and invites him into her tent. And obviously, he trusts her. She's beautiful. She's projecting some kind of a vibe that he falls for. But he goes in the tent and says, "Can I have a drink of water?" And she gives him some milk and some butter. And he ends up falling at her feet. And when he's either sleeping or worshiping her or whatever it is he's doing, she picks up a nail and bangs it through his temple with a hammer. And she becomes a heroine that kills this evil person. And Barak, the king, basically tells her that she's going to be blessed above all women. But that is one of those secrets. So, the point being, cattle, the reason why God is always looking at cattle represent women or slaves, the subservient, humble person, Cattle are a religious house, like when Abraham and Sarah left the land of Ur, they took all the cattle and all the souls. So cattle are people that are of the same frame of mind and belief, following a shepherd or a herder, a herdsman, being driven. So, what we got is, from the beginning of Genesis, there's Eve the first queen bee of the hive, and she's called the mother of all the living. And then Cain has some mystery woman, maybe she was a wild goat as well, But what we find is there's 3 bloodlines. Abel is a spiritual bloodline, which is a positive, God kingdom, spirit of God lineage, and it's not by blood, it's by pure spirit. Abraham grafted on into there. But then there's the Cain and the Seth bloodlines, and they intermarry, and also the divine seed lines from sons of God, both male and female, get injected into both of their bloodlines. And there's multiple events, but one of the events is the sons of God coming down on Mt Hermon as described in Genesis 6. Now, what you find out in Joshua 13:13, that's one of those doubles, the double cup, the 3 and the 1, and we're going to try and explain what that is, but Joshua went in and fought all the Nephilim sons, Gog and Magog, the giants, but there were 2 tribes, and they may have had cities possibly, but he did not kick them out of the promised land. It was these 2 tribes that lived at the base of Mount Hermon. And the tribes, what stands out about them is they are the name of women. One is Maachathites, which is mentioned 8 times and 8 times, the 8, the 4, but it means she has pressed. And it's also this tribe of Geshur or Geshur, but it's in Syria. And the king of Ptolemy, one of his daughters, which was another one of these divine bloodlines, was a wife of King David as well, and she came right out of these tribes. But when you hear that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, I do believe the daughters they were looking at came out of these 2 tribes, the Geshurites, and the Maachathites. But I'll read you a Bible verse. This is Proverbs 5:3. It says, "For the lips of a strange woman drop as the honeycomb, the queen bee, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood." In Revelations, we hear about a mountain, wormwood coming down. Maybe that's the queen of heaven being kicked out, It's a couple, the king and the queen, But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a 2-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold on hell. Lest thou should ponder the path of life, her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. But in the book of Enoch, Enoch 19, basically, Enoch says that the angels were led astray, and and the daughters of men, they ended up saluting them. Now, a salute could have like a sexual connotation, like an erection. They saluted them, but I think it was that they were actually worshiping the daughters of men. And these daughters, they're lit up, and they're here to this day. Like I think Anna over at AEJ 777 is one, and there's several others, but God is channeling his spirit in a powerful way through these daughters, but it's been that way throughout all time. Rebecca and Leah. Rebecca had the eyesight. There was a prophetess, Anna, in the New Testament, but it's all these daughters of men. But just so you know, daughters can be both men and women. Moses was fair. Noah was fair. There's mankind, and then there's womankind, the daughters. And womankind, that's the cattle. I mean, Jesus, mankind had dominion over womankind. And it isn't just man over woman, even though there are many brothers and sisters walking around where they literally think it's a good thing to be dominant over women, and it's not. It's a shadow thing, and all marriages based on that are based on a shadow. Now, on a heavenly relationship, God to us is man to woman, but there is example after example where that is shown not to be the case. One of it is this Jael, who's blessed in Judges. I'm going to try and bounce around a little bit. But, I got like a million notes here. So, in Judges 5, the Lord that comes down is described as the hairy, shaggy goat, the devil, the satyr, which sounds an awful lot like Satan. In the days of Shamgar, which is in the days of the sword. When he came down, the heavens dropped, and the clouds also dropped water. And the heavens dropping, that's water, raindrops falling, but it's also the word of God dropping at the same time. So it's this exact same event that happens in Revelations is happening in Judges 5, where the heavens are meeting and something is coming down from heaven. And it's the dark god, Satan, because the mountains melt and the men are running away in fear and trembling. But what it is the daughter of Jael is the wife of Heber. And actually, I'm going to say Jael is a positive daughter. But whether people are in darkness or people are in light, it's like light bulbs. Darkness can go to light, light can go to darkness. Like King David, he walked in light, but he walked in darkness at times, But Jael, she was the wife of Heber. Heber means comrade, not lord and master. So Jael, who put the spike through Sisera, this dark general of the army of Armageddon, and Barak, the lightning, he came with 10,000 of his warriors down the mountain, which is a picture of Christ coming with the 10,000 saints. So Barak and his saints crushed all the armies of the dark side, but the general Sisera ended up fleeing away on foot, on the earthly plane, and it was Jael who enticed him into the tent. But it's also likewise the daughters of men that enticed the angels into their tents, because the angels, the fallen sons of God, they're responsible. Come the day, they'll have to answer for what they did. But so will the daughters that fell, that made the angels salute them, to worship them, and create a queen of heaven, which is another fake god. But Heber was a comrade. That shows what a good marriage is where the wife and man are equal partners, And they were Kenites from the tribe of Cain, in the land of Canaan. So what we find, Isaiah 23:10, pass through the land as a river, daughter of Tarshish. There's no more girdle or yoke on you. What we got is the dark side has kings and queens, and they are the king of pride and the queen of vanity. The pride is the lions. The vanity is the queen of the heavens. And even in the Bible, it's in Ezekiel, I think it is, it talks about the queen of heaven trains the two lions to devour men. But that's kind of how the dark side pairs up, and ultimately the woman gets enslaved. She thinks she's a queen, but she's enslaved. Now on the light side, there's the same imagery. Christ is the groom, and he's coming for the bride. But in the Bible and throughout history, women have been covered up, so that's where you got to dig deeper. But what you'll see is the divine seed line flows down through the princesses and queen bees, and likewise what's on above surface, right? Like the water, the abyss is below surface, but above surface, on the land and in the air, is the male ego, the behemoth. So all you see when you're looking at history is men begatting men and kings. But there's a story to be told of the women. So the women came down, or the divine princesses. Noah brought a princess on board the ark, Naamah. His sons all had princesses. They named the cities after their wives. But you'll see that all these lit up women, daughters of men, were all living in the Mt Hermon area. And that's where David and all his mighty men were taking their wives from. So if you go through all his mighty men and who they were married to, you'll find out that there's all these lit up women. One note, the ark was 300 cubits long. That's the fullness of the Spirit of God. Giants were 300 cubits tall. That's the ego of man, as big as it can get. Part 11, hopefully we'll sum this all up. But what I forgot to kind of mention is just Jesus Christ himself. What people don't understand is Jesus was supportive of women all throughout the Bible. When he was the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, he constantly hooked up with women, like Hagar in the wilderness, Zillah, Sarah, women that could not bear children. He is the God that opens the womb, where Satan is the God that closes the womb. But Jesus, his disciples were clueless. They were the outer ring. The inner ring were the women, his mother, who was trying to drive him to do things like perform his first miracle, and Mary Magdalene and whatnot. The women who knew who he was, who anointed him with oil. The men who were clueless. So, Jesus healed the bent over woman. So that's part of the mystery of the deep and the blessing of the breasts and the woman, is that Jesus treats women as co-equals. He's not lording and having dominion over them. All right. Hey, this is Operation End Times, building the ark, the daughters of men. God bless you all.